I'm going to hand over the presentation to Bill Tobin. He is going to go through the best and what is and the best ideas for pets. So Bill, go ahead and take it over.
Thank you, Cherie. Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Good afternoon. It's finally sunny here in Northern California. Pets, well, we're going to pets. It looks like we've got just about every pet in the country covered, which is fantastic. And let's just go ahead and advance that to the next slide. There we go. So if you've never heard of pets before, yeah, we got them running around our house, that's for sure. But we're talking about president-elect training seminars. These are where the incoming Rotary presidents are going to learn all about how to run a club, what great things Rotary does, and of course, ShelterBox is one of those things. These events, these seminars are generally 2 to 3 days, and depending on how many districts are involved, they could have anywhere from 100 to over 500 attendees. These are catered towards the president-elects, but you'll also see just about everybody who's got a district governor title or has had one or will have one, or an assistant governor. All the district leaderships people generally go to pets, as do your Rotary Zone and Rotary Global leaders. Go ahead, Cherie. Thank you. So the first thing I want to kind of talk about here is that we have a wonderful partnership with Rotary. 2 things on this particular slide, though. Number one, you do not want to use this joint logo that you see here. That is for use only at the international level between Rotary and ShelterBox UK. So I know it looks slick, and we all like to use the slick-looking logos, but we cannot use this one. So you want to separate anything you have that you're presenting at a Pets or anywhere else, and use 2 individual logos instead of the combined logo. Also, on top of that, you'll notice in our fine print underneath, which basically says we're independent of Rotary and the Rotary Foundation, and that's actually a really good point to make, is that we aren't part of the foundation, as people will often mistake us as a foundation project and will think they're supporting us when in reality they're giving money to the Rotary Foundation. Nothing against Rotary Foundation. I love it. I'm a major donor myself, but it's important that we distinguish ourselves as being independent of the foundation. Go ahead, Cherie. So what makes us such good partners with Rotary International? Well, let's take a look at a few things that are highlighted in the strategic plan by Rotary. 1, advance their recognition and public image. Number 2, grow membership in both numbers and the quality of member. And number 3, there is increase their capacity to provide service. Now, Rotary and ShelterBox are really a natural alignment. Go ahead, Cherie. If we take a look here at those 3 things, well, you know, ShelterBox, we show a strong recognition of Rotary. It's not only is it all over our gear, but we began as a Rotary Clubs project, so we have always maintained a lot of the same values as Rotary, as far as being honest and transparent and reaching the most vulnerable in a community. Those same types of things that Rotary does, and it's a great public image partnership, having both logos present in disaster relief. Expanding membership globally. Well, I know for a fact I've met several of you who learned about ShelterBox first and then became new members of Rotary second, as you learn more about Rotary. That is right in alignment with Rotary's strategic plan of growing membership. And finally, increasing Rotary's capacity to provide service. Obviously, we are a project partner. We go on disaster relief responses all over the globe, and each time we're doing that, we're expanding Rotary's capacity to provide service. So we align very well with the strategic plan, but it gets quite a bit deeper than that. If we want to go to the next slide. Cherie, thank you. The Rotary Foundation. Now, Rotary Clubs and the Rotary Foundation categorize their impact in these 6 areas of focus. And this is outward facing. This is what Rotary can do for the world. And so, as you can see here, we have supporting education, providing clean water, promoting peace, saving mothers and children, growing local economies, and fighting disease. Anytime you're going to do something through Rotary, you can pretty much categorize that service project in these areas. Next slide, please. So, yeah, it's a busy slide, and that's intentional, but we fit Rotary's areas of focus. A warm blanket will help a child stay warm, or a infant and mother stay warm. Our tents and our shelter kits help provide shelter for those at-risk mothers and children. They've been used to create schoolhouses for education and literacy. Economic and community development, you might think that's a stretch, but it really isn't. We've got documented cases where a home-based business like a seamstress can open for business because now she has a SHELTERBOX tent to work out of. We have cases where people have taken the shovel and other tools in the toolkit and been able to actually get work and provide income since they've received that aid. Disease prevention treatment. I mean, this is a pretty busy slide, but as you can see, all of our gear will fit into the area of focus at least in one spot, if not several spots. So Rotary's dedicated those 6 areas of focus, and believe it or not, through our efforts, so is SHELTERBOX. Go ahead, next slide, please. Now, when Rotary clubs look inward, and they learn a lot of this at PETS, they learn a lot about the avenues of service and how to make a club a vibrant, active club. So the avenues of service are things that the club looks at internally to make sure they have service available in these various directions. Next slide, please. So as you can see, we align really well with the avenues of service. A thriving club is anchored by strong relationships. We've got people on the line right now from all over the United States. Some of them are even out of the United States. I've built so many good relationships as an ambassador with other clubs. A lot of times those conversations go beyond SHELTERBOX into what our clubs are doing in other areas of service, like vocational or community or international. And those conversations, oftentimes I'll bring stuff back to my club that I've heard from one of you in a conversation or read about on our SHELTERBOX Facebook group. So having a SHELTERBOX ambassador within a club is a good membership tool. It strengthens your club, and you're not going to lose that member. People get involved in SHELTERBOX, and it solidifies their membership in Rotary. Vocational service, that's working with integrity and contributing your expertise to the society at large. Making sure that you have people within your club able to do that is part of vocational service, and where SHELTERBOX and Rotary work together there. Obviously, 90% of our natural disaster responses involve Rotarians on both sides, the beneficiary side and on the fundraising side. Most of our staff and many, if not most of our volunteers are already Rotarians, and we utilize that expertise all around the globe to help us serve the families, the most vulnerable families, even better. So we're very much entrenched in vocational service. Community service is what Rotary clubs have to improve their communities. I mean, right where they live, and you may think, well, how can SHELTERBOX fit in there? Well, every time we're talking to clubs and we're telling them about what we do, we're reinforcing the need for families to be better prepared within their community. So oftentimes I'll talk to a club and I'll ask how many people have a disaster preparedness kit in their homes. Well, I probably wouldn't have asked that question if I was talking about, planting trees or supporting a children's activity of some kind that the club does. But since I'm talking about SHELTERBOX, it becomes pertinent, and it becomes a community thought process and something that clubs can look at to improve their community. And so we align very well with community service. Next slide, please. International service, I mean, that's a no-brainer. We're an ongoing international project. We're always seeking peaceful solutions, and I think there's no better proof in the pudding, and then getting a Nobel Peace Prize nomination now for the second year in a row. I mean, that's basically saying you're an international organization, and we provide international service. So that's a no-brainer. And youth services, Shirley was mentioning earlier with Eric and doing the RYE activities. Youth is the future. It really is. And the more youth that know about us, the brighter future that we have to reach more families as time goes on. But what ShelterBox brings, ShelterBox to a school or Interact Club or Rotary Club really does is not only teaches them about ShelterBox, but it teaches global awareness. And because we go about things in a Rotarian manner, humanities and ethics and empathy, service, peace, it's an ideal project for your Interact clubs or Rotary clubs. So these are ways we align with Rotary, and when these president-elects are getting trained on these same subjects, we now have a way of partnering each one of those subjects with avenues of service, areas of focus. We could match up really well with any of that. Next slide, please. So what are our objectives at PETS? Well, first and foremost, promoting ShelterBox, certainly. Second, let's inspire some Rotary Club presidents and Rotary leaders to support us. We want to schedule our presentations. You might not be able to secure a specific date, but getting the information out and finding the right contacts, recruiting volunteers, obviously always a big advantage at PETS, because you get presidents looking for things for their clubs to do, for their people to do, and we're a very viable option for that. And then promoting our ShelterBox Club Hero program, District Challenge, which I'll get on more on in a minute, and our Action Toolkit, which I'll also explain a little bit more here in a minute. Go ahead, Sheree. So basically, promoting ShelterBox is to have your gear up and ready, have your solar lights charged. Those are the little things that make a big difference. I always hate it when I go to start a solar light and it doesn't work. You know, it's not the best foot to start out on. So make sure lights are charged. Have a vertical banner if one's in your possession. Use the ShelterBox tablecloths. Have plenty of brochures. The volunteer poster that I think Sheree already sent out, and it's available on a portal, I'm sure. Have plenty of business cards. Have some ShelterBox swag to give to the Rotary clubs, and if at all possible, find a great location. You need to be adaptable. You need to be ready to roam around. You can't be afraid to engage with people, but please, no stalking. Let's not follow people all over the building to try to get a pamphlet in their hands. That just doesn't look cool that way. If people are busy, a Rotary International president might walk by and think, oh, I gotta get a brochure in their hand. Well, if they're Rotary International president or incoming president or someone real high up in Rotary, they probably already know about ShelterBox. Take the opportunity to say hi if you can, but please don't chase them around. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Another objective big is getting people inspired about us, and there's really no better way of doing that than having a beneficiary story ready. This is Lydia. You can meet her on several areas in the ShelterBox website and hear her story, but have a story ready. You might not have the graphic like you have here, but know a story to share. It's a great icebreaker. Someone says, "Oh, tell me about ShelterBox." Well, let me tell you about Lydia. You know, she's typical of most refugees and so forth and so on, until you get to how ShelterBox has really made a difference in her life. And those are good icebreakers. Have something ready to say. Next slide, please. Scheduling presentations, more like just plant the seed. Get the program chair contact information if you can. Get the club president's contact information, like a business card. If the president says, "Oh, I'll have to check with my program chair," which they will say a lot, give them 2 cards, one for them, one for the program chair. That's the key to getting into Rotary clubs is making sure they know how to get hold of you, making sure you know how to get hold of them, And then don't just sit on those business cards for a year that you get at a Pets. Call them or send them a thank you note right out the gate, even email. Thanks for stopping by our display. Would love to have a program at your club. Let's get involved together. Let's partner on finding vulnerable families. Whatever you want to say it, but get it to them. Next, please. Now I'm going to throw it back to Cherie for a moment, because she is certainly by far the expert on ShelterBox volunteer opportunities. So take it away, Cherie.
Absolutely, Bill. Thank you. I appreciate your patience while I click through that. We've had a lot of tips and questions come in already, so we're ready to address that when the discussion comes. But let's talk about recruiting ShelterBox volunteers. You know, last year at Pets, you had the ambassador conversation, you had the Rotary Club conversation, our Rotary Club champion liaison conversation. But we've opened that spectrum up because we understand that not everybody feels comfortable in a public speaking role, or maybe not everybody has the capacity to take on the time commitment like an ambassador. So we've created 2 new volunteer positions. You can see here we have the advocate and we have the change maker. So the advocate is somebody who's probably savvy on social media. They probably have a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook, just like we do, LinkedIn, and we're hoping they want to share our message. So they sign up to become an advocate. We ask them to like and follow our social media platforms and then share our message. In the time of disaster, we ask that they activate. So they are keeping their network on top of where we stand with the response to that disaster and how their network can help. They've got a reach that we don't have on our own. So by being an advocate, our message is getting out a little bit further. Now, a change maker is somebody who maybe they love planning events. They like fundraisers. They're probably the perfect Shine coordinator. They're the next Jambalaya coordinator, but they don't like speeches. They don't maybe have time for a year-round commitment to getting out and sharing the message, but they want to raise money for ShelterBox. Maybe they're going to do it on Facebook. It's whatever it looks like to them. Maybe they'll paddle the Mississippi. I think we know somebody that did that. So the change maker is a fundraiser, and at the time of disaster, they are going to activate. They're going to share the news of what's going on with ShelterBox in that disaster, and they're going to let their network know how to help and maybe create a special fundraiser around that time. You'll see that the club champion, that was once the Rotary Club liaison. We have changed that name to more coincide with the language that ShelterBox Canada uses to help get rid of some confusion there, but the ambassador stays the same. And when you go to our volunteer page now, we also show a separate little button for the office and intern where it lets you know that's just for California or Florida. And we have the response team. That page, now when you click apply, it does take them directly to the UK page. So we're hoping to clarify, expand our options, and extend our reach. Bill, I'm going to knock it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Cherie. That's good information. Okay, another objective at Pets is promoting various ways that we could create incentives for clubs to give. You know, clubs will give based just on the need and our stories, but also sometimes they like a little, you know, what's in it for them kind of thing. So the Hero program, that's nothing new. What we are going to start doing is maybe also looking at giving it retroactively, so that the pledge doesn't have to come in first. I know some clubs have a hard time with the pledge because they don't want to, they think they're committing money in the future and they don't want to do that, so they may back off from Hero. I think it's just important to let them know that they could be heroes just by a sustainable contribution of 1,000, 3,000, or 5,000. We'll put them in Hero Club. District Challenge, that's brand new this year. We're going to roll that out to the district governors and district governor-elects and the clubs on Rotary Day, the 23rd of this month, which is Rotary's, geez, I think I've lost count, 117 years or something like that. I have to look that up. Started in 1905, so what, 114 years. That is asking every club in the district to do something. There's no minimum donation like there is in a Hero Club. It does include advocacy. If they just want to shout out about us or share all the stuff we put on Facebook onto their club Facebook page, we're just asking for every club to do something. There's 7,000 clubs, give or take a couple dozen, in the United States. If every one of those clubs could just do $500, we would have more funding from Rotary clubs than we've ever had before. So it really depends on just getting clubs to do something. That's the district challenge. We may do some super challenge stuff in later years where, you know, a certain number of hero clubs or whatever. But for right now, for 2019, 2020, the district challenge is to do something, 100% district club support. The action toolkit, that will be shared soon. Also, I believe our deadline on that's the 23rd. We want to roll that out. That's a new section of our website. That will be your one-stop shop for online resources for clubs, for ShelterBox info, partnership info, fundraising ideas, drag and drop stuff you can put right into your district newsletters or even club newsletters or supporter newsletters, requests for speakers. Basically, that's going to be, if you already know about us and you just want to participate in some way, shape, or form, that's the site you're going to want to hit right there. So those are both new, District Challenge, Action Toolkit. That information will be coming out to the ambassadors any moment now, any day now, and then it'll officially launch. Many of you probably already know about them, and then it'll launch officially on the 23rd. So there's just an idea what the toolkit page looks like. I don't know, Sheree, if you're scrolling down that or if that's just...
No, I took a screenshot, but I wanted to give you guys a visual. You know, when you go here, this is kind of your landing page, and then what the screenshot's not capturing are the action buttons that offer you the different buckets of information that Bill described. So we're really trying to kind of parallel and mimic the Rotary website where you go and you have these different areas to take you to how you can get involved. We're doing the same thing for ShelterBox with a Rotary perspective.
Yeah, well put. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So talking points. I know in the playbook we sent out to everybody, the talking points were numerous. So I think it's important just to keep some basic strategy in your head, or else it could be overwhelming. Just think of something historical, statistical, relatable, and visionary. And if you could just have one from each of those, you'll have plenty of talking points for the person who walks up next. So like historical, well, there it is right in front of you. We're a Rotary project partner. We started in the year 2000. We've been nominated for a Peace Prize. Statistical, people love statistics, so have some ready to go. You know, 80 million people currently displaced, 300 disasters in over 100 countries, and I think we're actually saying now 1.5 million, but to be on the safe side, 1.4 million people served. And the most current information is always good to have. Know where we are currently, know what we did last year. Go ahead, Sheree. So relatable. Well, I think we've covered a lot of that. Areas of focus, avenues of service, strategic planning. We align well with all these things between ShelterBox and Rotary. It's why we make such good partners. And we're both obviously volunteer-driven organizations. Yeah, they got us by a few, 1.2 million to 1,000. But let's, if we do this right at PETS, maybe that 1,000 global volunteers will turn into 1,200 or 1,500. You never know what impact you have unless you're able to relate and talk to people. Visionary, that's kind of stuff like our vision plan and our goal. You know, we want to be able to help 1 million people a year. We believe in a world where no family is left without shelter. These are visionary. It's not fact. It's where we want, what we want to see in the world, and we're going to work as hard as we can to make that vision come true, to make that vision fact. And when you use these talking points, your ask, which at PETS is a little bit different. You don't really ask for a check or anything like that, but you want to ask things like, will you commit to supporting ShelterBox? Can you advocate for ShelterBox? Make it in the form of a conversational ask, like, hey, let's help the most vulnerable families by committing your club to be a hero club. ShelterBox is the right international project for your youth programs. ShelterBox is the right international project for your club. Let's make this happen. Those are all calls to action, but it wasn't quite as direct as, hey, we really need some money. We hope your club could write us a check. Well, I mean, that's a pretty direct ask, and it certainly needs to be made sooner or later. But at these events, there's so much going through people's heads that sometimes they're looking for a way to partner, or they're looking for a way to support, but they don't really have the ways or means right there to make a financial commitment. So the ask is a little bit different, but if you have pets, but if you have these talking points memorized or have your own, just something historical, statistical, relatable, and visionary, you should have no problem finding plenty of clubs that want to jump in and support us. Last slide, I think, after this. Yep. So taking good care of your pets, make sure they have plenty of water, let them out to go to the bath. Oh wait, wrong pets. Taking good care of your pets at pets is be set up before it starts. It's kind of awkward looking when you come late to the game and people are, our tent takes a little bit of room to put up. So normally we're taking up some walking space and stuff. So be there in plenty of time. Keep your display area clean. If you have personal items, put them underneath the desks. Someone comes up and they're kind of looking around with an empty coffee cup. Always have a garbage can available. Sometimes I'll even throw one in the back of my truck so I can just have one with me. Just a little, little ones. Have a sign-up sheet available. Have something where people, if they don't have a business card, they can write down their name, their club, their email or phone number. Have lots of brochures. Provide those volunteer opportunities that we just talked about. Move around. People will walk past you and they may not have time to talk with you, but they may be walking past you and go standing in a long line waiting to get into a meal service. Well, walk that line. Hand out your business cards. Have some SHELTERBOX brochure or some swag with you. Ask this simple question: are you familiar with SHELTERBOX? If they say yes, you've got something to talk about. If they say no, you've got something to talk about. Basically, I'm saying you'll have something to talk about. Have those talking points at the ready. Have a story in your head. If you see anyone, they normally have a different colored badge than anybody else. They'll be the people that are around when we first show up. Usually, they'll be more prominent because there won't be as many people around. Those are the pets organizing committee members. Thank them every chance you get. A little bit of thanks goes a long ways. And also ask already at this year pet about next year pets. And have a good time no matter what. Sometimes you go to these and people just seem to pass you by and you chase them down or you walk a line and everyone just seems to be too preoccupied for you. Don't let that get you down. They are preoccupied. Pets is a big deal. Running a Rotary Club might seem simple until you've actually done it. It's a very rewarding, a very fun thing to do, but it is a lot of work, and they take this training very serious. And we're just a sideshow of that training in many ways. We're just, we're lumped in with vendors and other organization things that want these clubs to participate. They're going to want to look at them all. I guess all I can say is have a smile on your face, be welcoming, talk about SHELTERBOX, and the SHELTERBOX almost sells itself because it is such a cool thing. If you get a couple points across, you'll get people involved. And that's it. Have a good time at Pets, people, folks, everybody. I'll be at mine. Yeah,
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
we
appreciate
that overview. And we did have some tips and some questions come in, so I have built in time to kind of address those. First, a few of you are in areas that are also disaster aid areas, and I think some of those areas have maybe feel more, not so much competition, but it feels like there might be some bad blood in some areas. Other areas you've started to work more cohesively, or you can set up at Pets together and it not be a big deal. But one of our ambassadors lives in an area where it's increasingly abrasive. They're receiving these comments from disaster aid and wants to know, how can we address this? And for me and Bill, I'll give you an opportunity to answer too, but I have worked alongside a disaster aid at Zone Institute. And when people came up and they wanted to know, one, what is the difference, or if they had any comments about the two, I just said, there's enough room in the world of disaster relief for both of us, and we're just all grateful that we can provide effort and to serve those displaced alongside one another. We do different things, and I'll say, here's what SHELTERBOX work is. Here's where we are currently working. And then I let them go and have the conversation with disaster aid. I don't ever try to combat the abrasive comments, or I don't ever speak to, if they're speaking negatively, I try to dismiss it and say, well, I know this was our mission. There are displaced people out there. We have to try and serve them. And Bill, I don't know, have you run into that at all?
Yeah, I have. We had disaster aid at one of our pets a few years ago. Now, I'm in the far west pets area, and it's one of the largest in the country. I believe it's 9 districts. So it's just crazy. There's 600 plus people. I think there's 550 clubs. So you have 100 plus people on top of that. So you're absolutely right. There's those three. There's no point in trying to do a side-by-side comparison. There's no point in trying to formulate a strategy that we're better than they are in some way, shape, or form. I believe we're better than them in all ways, but I would never, in a forum like a PETS, say that to anybody. What I would say is that, yeah, there's 80 million people in the world displaced right now, and by 2025, we want to reach 1 million of those. So if those numbers don't change in the world, there's room for 80 ShelterBox-like organizations out there, and then maybe with that many, we'll be able to solve the shelter crisis in the world. Kind of lay it out that way that, the need is out there so great. There's room for dozens of disaster relief, shelter-oriented organizations. That being said, we've got a great track record. The Nobel Peace nominations, I think, validate our efforts more than just about anything else there has been to date. And yeah, I don't get into a one-up contest with anybody else. If you've ever been and looked at all the different organizations that are out there doing disaster relief, we're all doing a good job. I think that ShelterBox is probably has the farthest reach at any given time between the two. But again, I wouldn't express that as, oh, we have a farther reach than they do. You would just express it as the reach we do have. That we've been able to reach 300 disasters in under 20 years and helped almost 1.5 million people, 100 plus different countries. I mean, those speak for themselves.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Appreciate you adding to the insight. And for those that have asked or those that are wondering, yes, we are going to make this PowerPoint available. The call recording and PowerPoint should be up on the Ambassador portal by end of day tomorrow. The call recording link will be sent out with our February newsletter with a reminder to let them know how to find the call recording and slideshow deck on the portal, and then the notification will be added to Facebook as well. We got a lot of good ideas for pets from Dave Nichols, so I want to take a moment just to kind of go through those as bullet points. Dave recommends be visible, and I think Bill covered that, but be visible, make sure the logo is out there and you're getting good placement. He also says it's a great way to get new ambassadors integrated. That's true. If you're a new ambassador, try to connect with other ambassadors in your area, see if you can have a presence there with them at PETS. It's a great way to be introduced to the Rotary system. If you've never been to PETS, great way to shake some hands with some Rotary presidents and make ambassador friends as well. Additionally, we have set up a tent and do a happy hour. I know that comes up a lot, and we've talked about be by the bar. So it's not for us to necessarily drink. It's for when our presidents and the participants are going by, it's downtime, and they're having a drink. It's a great way to strike up casual conversation with them.
If I could add on that just for a second, Cherie, you do need to make sure, hosting the tent and inviting people who are buying drinks on premises in the tent's one thing. Even giving away, like bringing wine, ShelterBox wine or something, giving away, you need to clear that with the hotel staff. Make sure it's okay to do that. And you also need to make sure you're complying with any liquor laws. I know in California, beer, you can't even just give beer and liquor away in some instances without a liquor license. So just make sure you're doing that. If you're going to do a happy hour, just make sure you're complying with any rules.
Okay, good tips, good tips. Another idea from the Pacific Northwest is to make an appearance at the district room happy hours. So just show up, I guess. Dave and Eric said that we totally do that. So go where you can, but don't stalk, as we heard. Don't be creepy.
Yeah, and actually the hospitality suites are fair game. I mean, if someone invites you to check out the hospitality suite, by all means, go do it, because that's where they all hang out after hours.
Okay, great. We had a recommendation to do a daily drawing with business cards. Great way to capture information to bring back so that they can be looped into what's going on with ShelterBox. And we'll make sure if there's any other tips. I think that's all from Dave. We're getting questions about the Nobel Peace Prize, and yes, ShelterBox was nominated again in 2019 for the Nobel Peace Prize. We are working within the staff team to decide a strategy for a communication plan. You all know we can't self-promote. You know, and you can kind of mention that in passing casual conversation. I don't think you're going to see us posting about it unless we get that green light. I know last year we knew that we were nominated. We kind of treaded water as to how we were going to communicate that. We eventually sent out the notification through the ambassador newsletter, and then eventually it got looser and looser as we went along. But right now we're still in that tight space of wanting to make sure we're respectful of this nomination and that we're not self-promoting, because the nominees don't ever get notified unless the nominator tells them. So we're wanting to be respectful in this time. As we learn more and we're ready to put it out there a little bit further, we'll make sure that we send that communication out. But for now, you do know, and it's something I think you can bring up casually. Bill, I don't know if you have any other advice on that.
No, that's a good point. It's something we're not supposed to self-promote, like we wouldn't put out on our web page. But it has been told to us, so I would use it as a conversation piece only. I wouldn't put it in a slide or have a big poster made. Last year's pretty obvious. They don't ever publish the nominees, so anyone could probably say they've been nominated. There's no way you can really prove otherwise. So there's a little bit of that as well. But yeah, I think it's a big deal. And that if someone's talking to you and you're trying to stress how well we do in the world especially in regards to peace and conflict resolution through our work, then it's certainly something worth saying to somebody.
Thank you, Bill. And I'm not seeing any other. I'm just going to scroll really quick, make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, we have a tip from Peggy. Send an email to the president-elects inviting them to the reception if you're having one, or to stop by the booth. That's great. Let them know ahead of time. Holly says if you're worried about the liquor laws, just provide the snacks. Give them the food to take with their happy hour.
Yeah, a good idea there. Just again, make sure the hotel's approving it. You don't want to get the whole pets in trouble because we were the guys giving out food, or we were the people doing whatever we shouldn't have been.
All right, and then we have somebody saying an opportunity to give ShelterBox swag to the first number of clubs that sign up for a presentation. So a way to get your foot in the door with different clubs. And Mary Sloan says that sometimes in the past we've made a presentation to the partners at PETS. All right, well, I know we're starting to come up to the top of the hour, and I want to make sure I have time for some staff reminders. If there was any further tips, suggestions, or questions from today's call, you can email them directly to me at sheets@shelterboxusa.org so that I can answer them all at once. I'd be happy to do that. But for right now, with the time we have left, I want to let you know, if you haven't already seen, we have a one-stop shop for Rotary tools, pets, and district conferences. District conferences are coming up. They're right around the corner. In this one-stop shop, you're going to find a letter template that allows you to give your district governor a heads up. You want to be at district conference. Here are some ways that you can add ShelterBox engagement to district conference. Go check it out if you haven't already. And then also here in this one-stop shop, if you can't set up by the bar, if things just aren't seeming to go this perfect ideal plan that we've just said, here's the best way to make an impact at pets. Maybe the least that can be done is working with the coordinators and with the MCs to play a 3-minute ShelterBox promotion video. There are 4 video options here in the one-stop shop that can be played at different downtimes or transition periods during pets and district conferences, so make sure to check that out. This is on the portal as well as through our Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you can go to our welcome album and click through. There's a Google Drive where those resources are available as well.